KGB, FSB and Trump. What I personally witnessed. Exclusive. I have unique personal first-hand experience with the KGB FSB. This is why this Trump-Russia story no one can tell you as much as I can, because I have my own experience with these organizations and people who works for them. I hope this will be useful for you. A Russian influence, spies, moles and useful idiots. Insights from Zeihan, McBeth and my experience. This is what we will talk about today. Please stay with me until the end of the video, because this is not a clickbait. I really have real life experience meeting with KGB, FSB agents and generals, and nobody else have that kind of experience. So I will tell you some things which nobody else can tell you, because simply they don't have that kind of experience. Hello there, I'm Elena, welcome back to my channel Enough of Propaganda. Please like, subscribe, write comments, let's make truth available for everyone. As you know, I don't do conspiracy theories. I apply facts and evidence. This is why we will talk about Russian agents, Russian spies and so on, intelligence agents. And this part of the video will be based on a couple videos by Peter Zeihan, if I pronounce his name right, and Ryan McBeth. It's not based on my own experience, but we will get to this. Because these days, lots of talks about is Trump Russian spy, isn't he Russian spy, and this and that. Before we even get to any of this, we need to know how things really are, how things are done, or were done by the KGB and so on. And in this case, this video, the Russian rich categorizing intelligence agents, I agree with Zeihan, and in the future video I'll show you later with McBeth, that Russia is highly skilled in human intelligence, using spies, informants, and influence campaigns, while the United States focuses more on signals intelligence, SIGINT, which involves electronic eavesdropping in various forms. The Kremlin infiltrates governments, media, and social movements by manipulating people through ideology, money, and psychological tactics. Ryan McBeth explained some of these tactics in his video Why Some Celebrities Support Russia and Why It Matters. So we will talk about this video as well. I don't think there is a need to explain who Ryan McBeth is. He's very famous cybersecurity engineer and so on, so if you want, you can find out who he is, and I'll give you the links to all the videos. Just in case some of you don't know, intelligence agencies recruit assets using the MICE framework. MICE, it's abbreviation which stands for money, ideology, compromise, and ego. Also, it can be called RICE, with R standing for reward instead of M for money. Not everyone is paid operative. Many supports Russian narratives due to personal motivations. Some of this motivation is money. Some online personalities and media figures push Russian propaganda because it's financially lucrative, as it seems with outlets like Tenant Media. I still didn't have a chance to make a video on them, but someday I'll get to this. Which they were literally paid millions of dollars by Russians to push Russian propaganda for foreign and American audience. And they did it. Gladly. Second is ideology. Others genuinely believe in the narratives that they promote, much like historical Soviet sympathizers. Peter Zeihan kind of refers to Bernie Sanders and Michael Moore in his video, which I disagree with him on that. But some people genuinely believe that socialism is good, and in general, socialism as a theory is not bad. It was actually supposed to be good. It's just the problem is Soviet Union has never had socialism. It never had communism. It always has dictatorship/cult. But this is a subject and topic for another video. C in MICE stands for compromise, или компромат in Russian. Coercion through blackmail is effective but conditional. Once an individual finds an escape, they might stop cooperating. So they basically collect compromising materials on people. And I a little bit can tell you from my own experience right here that during some lectures, which KGB or FSB, depends on the time, had in Russian universities, for example in mine, They literally explain that, how it's done, by saying, if you guys go never into foreign country, keep staying with your group, which usually when the USSR people was going into foreign countries, there always was a KGB agent in the group who is going with the group of foreign tourists to the foreign country, especially if it is the so-called West. It's not like Warsaw Pact countries, like Poland or anything. It's real Western countries, like West Germany, for example, or Great Britain. So stay with the group. And they literally described certain tactics, like Russians, for some foreign tourists, could do a banquet or invite them in a restaurant, pump them with the food and beer, a lot of beer, for example, or some drinks, which, after people drinking that much of liquid, they would like to go to the bathroom, eventually. And then they drag them on a big excursion around the city and this and that. And then, what do? You don't know where the bathrooms are, and they literally take you in the places when there are none. Eventually, some of them, because they don't want to wet their pants, literally, they have to go to the bushes and look for a place to relieve themselves. That's paparazzi of Russian KGB with a camera will photograph, for example. And then they say, well, comrade, future comrade of Mr. Jones, for example. Would you like the picture of your private parts making a fountain in the Russian public place be published in every newspaper abroad? Or you might do us a favor or two, or you might be this and that. So this is one of the tactics Soviet FSB literally used. And they told it about it, and I heard it myself personally. And the last one is ego. Many influencers seek attention and approval, adopting opposing views to stay in the spotlight. They just like to be contradictory just because it gives them attraction, likes, clicks, and money eventually by people subscribe to their YouTube channels and so on. We will talk about them a little later. Despite that Mr. Zeihan doesn't speak Russian, I can provide more kind of accurate classification of Russian agents. I think it could be improved to what he said, but he provided really good information, and in general his videos are very informative and useful. It's just certain things I don't think he knows as much as, for example, some other people. So let's talk about classification of Russian agents. Russia's network of foreign agents span from unwitting influencers to deeply embedded operatives, and we will talk about both. One of them are useful idiots, which are public figures who unknowingly spread Russian propaganda, often due to ideological alignment or anti-establishment leanings. Many believe they are acting independently. We can't prove sometimes that somebody is actual Russian agent, which is to make person an agent, the FSB would, for example, go and really coerce them in that mice scheme, and then make them sign some sort of agreement and this and that, and yeah, I'll be spying for Russia. Not all of them like that. Some of them really useful idiots. They not a spies per se, or a Russian agent's assets or something like that. They just been fooled and used for like their influence or something like that, just because they believed in a lie and spread it. I have several videos, 3 of them, which called Foreign Assets of Putin. Part 1 is about Europe and part 2 about the United States. I maybe didn't name the video right away correctly as call them foreign agents. I should have probably said right away foreign assets. But nevertheless, so you can welcome to watch the video on Europe, for example. As to the United States, there is my video on Trump and Putin. For example, this is episode 1 of part 2 of the foreign assets of Putin. And as to Mr. Zeihan's view on Michael Moore, Bernie Sanders, I said I disagree with it. And I don't think that he's correct on them. But Mr. McBeth's position on Tucker Carlson, Alex Jones, Scott Ritter, John Mearsheimer, and Colonel Douglas McGregor is correct, as I have demonstrated in my videos, which will be this one. This is part 2, about Tucker Carlson, McGregor, and a lot of others. The next category is called agents of influence. They are shaped by Russian narratives, whether through direct interaction with Russian operatives or by consuming and amplifying Kremlin's messaging. Organizations like Greenpeace, for example, have been cited as historical example. And there are other examples. Our guy, the next category, represents individuals who have fully internationalized Russian talking points and actively spread them. Figures like Elon Musk and even Donald Trump himself are perfect example. I guess I can say Donald Trump is perfect example because he spread Russian disinformation, perhaps for some other reasons than just being a Russian guy. Russians themselves can decide he's our guy or he isn't our guy yet. Next category is media mouthpieces. Push Russian propaganda while maintaining an illusion of independence. Journalists, podcasters, and TV personalities, especially those who gain exposure on platforms like RT or Joe Rogan's podcast, often spread Kremlin narratives under the pretense of independent thinking. Figures like Tucker Carlson are a great example. Next category called recruited operatives knowingly collaborate with Russian intelligence. Some, like Jill Stein, have met directly with Putin, raising questions about their level of involvement. Others, such as Aldrich Ames, were fully compromised spies. These type of agents, they really sign up that they are working for the Russian KGB FSB, depends on the time period. Basically, it's interchangeable, it doesn't really matter, because modern days FSB is exactly the same as KGB. All they did just change couple letters in the name. There is no difference. They're using the same tactics and the same goal to destroy other countries' prosperity, destroy democracy, destroy the very idea of democracy, because Soviet Union and Russia could never achieve what achieved democratic countries like United States, like Canada, like European Union, even former Warsaw Pact countries who left Russia and joined European Union, even Hungary, their economic and everything improved enormously after that, because they stopped being under Russian influence. Until now, until people like Viktor Orban and some other Russian puppets in charge of the countries in Europe are trying to get back to Russian influence and doing exactly what Russia does. Corruption and all the other advantages of Russian influence. This is why their country is not performing as well as, let's say, Canada or the UK or Germany. This is why these agents, recruited operatives, they are working to destroy your country, inside your country. They are working for the Russians, whose goal is to destroy your country, destroy the life there, destroy what you achieve, take away what you achieved, take away what your parents achieved, your grandparents achieved, like, let's say, for Americans, because this is their goal. Otherwise, dictators like Putin cannot stay in power, because Russians would see that Ukraine achieved something more than they did just because they are a democratic country and they have democratically elected leaders. They fought corruption and let's say they won, for example, and they could create for themselves good life. Russia and USSR couldn't. They never could. This is why their goal, and always was and still is, to destroy us, the democratic world. Another categories are moles, or a krot in Russian. This is like an animal who lives underground. They are deep cover operatives embedded in foreign governments and institutions. Historical cases include Ames and Hansen, this man, Robert Hansen, while figures like Edward Snowden remain subjects of speculation. And the last major category is deep cover agents, actual agents, who infiltrate high-ranking positions to shape policy. Some former Western leaders, such as Germany's Chancellor Gerhard Schröder, have openly worked with Russian energy firms like, literally, he gets millions from Gazprom, benefiting Moscow's geopolitical strategy. Why Russian influence matters? The power of media exposure and the allure of contrarianism make Russian narratives self-reinforcing, so they easily spread. Many influencers realize that taking an anti-establishment stance attracts millions of followers. And great sponsorships, great money. Even those who are not directly handled by foreign intelligence often spread Kremlin's messages because it boosts their careers, not necessarily because they are paid or coerced. The Trump factor in Russian political infiltration. In his video, Zeihan doesn't claim that Trump was directly recruited, but suggests his policies have inadvertently benefited Russia. He dismisses theories of compromat, or compromising materials like sex tapes and so on, but raises concerns about Trump's deference to Putin. And I'll explain this a bit more. To conclude this part of the video, that Russia is mastery of human intelligence, allows it to control and manipulate foreign narratives using ideology, money, and personal influence. Through both direct recruitment and media manipulation, the Kremlin shapes global discussions to its advantage. This is the information war. Russia has never stopped fighting against democratic countries, with propaganda at its most powerful weapon. I would say it's the only weapon of Putin who actually works. Which isn't even a weapon of Putin. This is the weapon the USSR used for decades before him. And this is why I created my channel Enough of Propaganda, to combat it and help people find the truth. And in several of my videos I've highlighted Putin's foreign assets and explained how they assist Russia in its information war. In this my video I've shown proof of deep ties between Trump and Putin. And I'll tell you a little bit more on the matter. Now let's talk about Trump. There are several videos and several masses of information claiming that they know that Trump was a Russian spy, he was recruited and so on. And let's divide facts from speculations. Like in this particular video, did Russia recruit Trump as a Russian spy? I could say that certain things are true, like Trump really visited Russia several times. And in fact, in 1987, that's what the information what I will tell you about basically was happening, roughly in that time period, in my time in university and so on. So what is true? Trump visited Russia, this is true. Every Russian spy will be looking into every foreigner, absolutely every single foreigner which comes to Russia. Why do I know that? Because they come to my university, the FSB literally came to my university recruiting students to follow and interact with foreign guests, tourists, every single tourist who is coming to my 1 million people city of Volgograd, either by plane or by boat or by train. Because we have a big river Volga, there are boats coming in and so on. They were coming to my city to visit Russia after Perestroika. Or I should say during Perestroika time. And certain information is very privileged, so nobody else knows, because many people lived in Russia and the USSR for years and they have never experienced any of this. They have never saw it firsthand, and they had no idea that there are KGB people walking the same streets right beside them and actually interacting with their people and with their children. In the USSR, foreign tourists, which wasn't all that many of them who could actually visit USSR, had to live in very special hotels. This is the hotel Inturist in Volgograd. Inturist means иностранный tourist, foreign tourist. So the only foreign tourists during the USSR time could live in these particular hotels, which was several of them in different cities. And this one is still open and still operating in my home city of Volgograd. Only now other people could live in there too. During Soviet time, Soviet people was not allowed to live in these hotels unless they bribe some people who work there, who knows that it's empty, there are no foreign tourists, so they could let people spend the night because they really need to stay somewhere. There was not enough hotels in the Soviet Union. Many people who travel or go through the city because of they traveling through and they need to stay overnight, they had to literally bribe people who work in the hotels just to get a room or sometimes a bed. But Inturist could stay empty and nobody will be allowed to live there because this is for foreign tourists only. And the reason for that was that if not all of the rooms, many of them were bugged, not by bed bugs, but electronic bugs, and cameras and so on to spy on foreign tourists and collect on them compromat or compromising materials. So the facts was mentioned in the video that Trump stayed in certain hotels in Moscow and so on. It was famous for KGB watching them. This is highly likely true. because everybody was watched. Every foreign tourist. In the perestroika time, as I said, these people were recruiting students. Typically, they organized them in the groups, boy and the girl, who pretend to be boyfriend and girlfriend, which they shouldn't do anything boyfriend-girlfriends do, because, as you know, there was no sex in the USSR and nothing like that. But the point was, in case a foreigner decided to invite, like foreign couple, for example, coming to see the USSR after perestroika, the gates was open, it was interesting to see how it is behind the Iron Curtain, and they were generally friendly to the Soviet Union, and they meet boy and girl, then who say they girlfriend, boyfriend, or whatever, friends, it would be easier for the foreign tourists, for example, if they decided to invite them in their room and have a drink there or a coffee, to take them to the restaurant, and the young people would offer them free tour of the city, showing them around. The foreigners might say, okay, we will invite you just as a hospitality thing on our boat, in our cabin on the boat, and we can have a tea, we can have a conversation, we're really interested to meet Soviet people. So naive foreigners were thinking that they're meeting actual real Soviet people, which they kind of were, but that was the Soviet people who were approved by the FSB or KGB at the time, depends on the time, to be able to talk to them. And in the end, they will be asked what they were talking about with these foreigners. They would be asked how those foreigners behave. For example, maybe they wanted to sneak in into some apartment building and post an envelope in somebody's mailbox, which would be on the first floor of the building or a ground floor. Maybe they interacting with some Russian spies in Russia and they came to bring them instructions or something like that. So this is what those people were doing. And I personally saw the conversation between the FSB agent and the people, the young guys. And again, then I saw them in action when they actually met foreign tourists in town. I wasn't kind of notified that this stuff happening, and I saw it myself. So this is not he said, she said. It's not something, information somebody, I did research or something, find somewhere. I saw it myself. On top of everything, in modern day Russia, right now, not necessarily just in FSB, Russian authorities giving lectures to the students of, for example, MGIMO and Moscow Institute of International Relationships about how to be the spies, how to disrupt life in foreign countries. And this was the lecture of Dmitry Rogozin. This footage is from Warthog Defense, and I showed it in my video, part of it, but I watched the whole lecture myself. It's still on YouTube.
Russian Senator Dmitry Rogozin explained how Russian propaganda works in a lecture at university in Moscow. Something is familiar?
Victory in war primarily depends on discrediting the enemy's political and military leadership. Therefore, portraying them in the eyes of their own people as inept individuals who have undeservedly risen to power and thus are leading their society towards ruin and death becomes a crucial tactic. The second method to discredit the enemy's leadership is with accusations of corruption, employing vast amounts of deep fakes to depict certain figures on the enemy's side as mere thieves and corrupt officials, basically to show them as untrustworthy. This strategy primarily targets their most influential and popular figures. Additionally, intimidation tactics can be employed by showcasing the strength and the unwavering determination of one's own army in achieving its goals.
The point is here, not even that the Russian government still doing this, and actually implying these tactics Rogozin says, they teaching students about it. And these students, I'll explain you who they are. MGIMO, Moscow State Institute of International Relations. These are preparing future diplomats, journalists, and people who govern the country, dealing with economy, law, journalism, foreign trade and management, and everything else, including environmental studies. So these students are taught in the university how to be a spies, how to disrupt the life in other countries. That is why I was telling you again and again that Lavrov is not a diplomat. As many Russian so-called journalists are not journalists. They are either spies or the propagandists whose duty and goal to deceive you, to lie to you, to destroy your country and your life. He is the future diplomats we're talking about, and journalists and everybody else. In my time, I personally saw on the meeting with because he was a State Duma in the future, so in Soviet Union that was called Supreme Council or something like that. It was a former KGB general Oleg Kalugin, and I have saw him and I saw his speech, and I talked to even to his personal representative at the time on the meeting. Oleg Kalugin was during a time head of KGB political operations in the United States. Later he became a critic of the agency, and even being convicted in absentia for spying for the West and so on. But at the time I saw him, he was a politician, and he was having a meeting, political rally kinda in my city, and he exposed KGB tactics and explained stuff about it right openly. So I saw him personally, and I even talked to his representative to find out more about him and what he is doing at the time. It was perestroika, many things was become opened to the public, which many people have never heard of before. And back to Trump. This is not Kalugin, this Alnur Musayev. And he is a former head of a Kazakhstan National Security Committee, which kind of like KGB. Claims that Trump was recruited under the name Krasnov, which is basically mean red, Krasny, red. He claimed in 2025 that Donald Trump has been recruited by the KGB when visited Moscow as a real estate developer in 1987 and was given code name Krasnov. Well, I didn't find proofs to his claim. Please remember the goal of the KGB agents is lie to you and falsify information and use you one way or another as a useful idiot or a tool or anything like that. He didn't specify that Trump actively knowingly participated in any espionage activities, but he didn't have to. What I researched, Musayev claimed that Donald Trump was recruited by certain department of the KGB, and typically, as far as I know, this was not the right department. But again, saying that other departments couldn't recruit somebody, I wouldn't say so. But this, I don't think this is proved or confirmed, especially because KGB lying all the time and so on. I wouldn't trust KGB agents myself, whatever. But the point is, this was the accusation, and so far I didn't find the confirmation to this. Another former KGB agent, Yuri Shvets, who was saying something about Trump being a spy. Several media and bloggers jumped to the opportunity and picked up their information and say, Yuri Shvets say this and Yuri Shvets say that. He's another former Soviet intelligence officer of Ukrainian origin. He was a major of the KGB. And once KGB is always a KGB. But this is not why I distrust him. Why I distrust Shvets, not just because he is from KGB, just because in my video about massive Kremlin disinformation campaign and Operation Doppelganger, I personally caught Shvets, who maybe pretend to be pro-Ukrainian, judged by the flag behind his back, but he took part in Russian disinformation campaign, spreading Russian disinformation and conspiracy theories. An attack on Defense Minister of Ukraine Alexei Reznikov on TikTok at the time, he supported that and supported lies about Zelensky that he's ungrateful, the West is tired of him, all the Russian talking points of the Operation Doppelganger. It happened during that operation and way before Trump became president and in Oval Office, he and Vice President Vance attacked Zelensky and then repeated Russian Doppelganger operation propaganda narratives, which Shvets was repeating in this video, which was way earlier, about Zelensky is ungrateful, Ukraine is ungrateful, we shouldn't help Ukraine. and pushing all the Russian propaganda talking points. So I would not trust his information whatsoever. What need to keep in mind that I told you about those different type of agents for a reason. So you don't have to be an agent, and some valuable assets, like Russians recruit somebody valuable. They're not signing a paper, I'm gonna be an agent. They don't really receive some sort of a reward for that sometimes. They don't even acknowledge that, they don't even sometimes know themselves that they were recruited and used for basically Russian disinformation and propaganda. So there would be no signs, even if you open archives, that they were recruited ever. Some of the really valuable targets, the KGB would never do that, even in the Soviet time. So we wouldn't find the exact proofs of Trump being recruited or anything, and he might have never was officially recruited, and so on. So innocent until proven guilty, and I can't say that there are facts proving absolutely 100% that yes, he is a Russian spy. But does it really matter? Because what he does, since the moment he became president and even before, like for 6 months he delayed, through his puppet Johnson, aid for Ukraine, which led to loss of Avdiivka, for example. And right now he's basically twisting Ukrainian hands to surrender to Russia, to losing Russia, who couldn't in 11 years, in the last 3 years of full-scale invasion, capture Ukraine. They couldn't win. They couldn't grab Kiev. They couldn't do anything. And yet, whatever Trump is doing is benefiting Russia, damaging the United States, damaging Ukraine, damaging the world, democratic world, and helping Russia spread Russian propaganda. Just one example. To basically spitting on the decision of Congress and trying to get rid of Radio Liberty and Voice of America. This is basically Soviet Union dreamed about destroying NATO, dreamed about getting rid of this particular two media, because they were telling the truth to us, to Soviet people behind the Iron Curtain. And I might make a special video on that, because they were important. Because of them, we are people in the USSR even could find out what is happening in our own country. So getting rid of them, despite the decision of Congress, which is illegal, and Radio Liberty and Voice of America now going to sue them for that, apparently. This is just one example, and let alone destruction, basically destroying NATO, what Soviet Union and Russia dreamed about for decades and couldn't achieve, and Trump achieved in a month. So the actions of Trump speaks louder than words. There is information now that the court decided that it was illegal about Radio Liberty and about Voice of America. So they even will be paid for at least mid-March for what are they doing. And hopefully it will continue to be that way, because the decision of Congress and President cannot override the decision of Congress. So democracy is still working somewhat in the United States so far. What do you think about it? Please write to me in a comment. In the end, just to have some fun, I'll tell you about a song from the kids movie made in the USSR in 1975. The name of the movie, The Adventures of Buratino. Kind of like it was based on Alexei Tolstoy's version of Pinocchio. The song is performed by Alice the Fox and Basilio the Cat, the cunning tricksters who deceive Buratino, or Pinocchio. Here they are. The fox is pretending that she's disabled, and the cat is pretending that he's blind. Why I decided to tell you that? It's because this song basically a playbook for KGB recruiting agents, how to do it. So the text sound as such. As long as boasters live on earth, we must praise our fate with mirth. What a bright and endless blue sky. We are not ones for banditry. No need for knives on boastful men. Just praise him again and again, and do with him what you intend. So basically, people who like to brag about themselves, who are so fond of themselves, narcissists and so on, you just praise them enough. Tell them how wonderful they are, and they will do anything you want. What a bright and endless blue sky. We are not ones for banditry. No need for knives on greedy fools. Just flush a coin. Such simple rules. And do with him what you intend. So, for people who greedy, you just show them the money. Tell them that they will get some money in the end of it. And they all yours. As long as fools still walk this land. Deception fits us hand in hand. What a bright and endless sky. We are not ones for banditry. No need for knives on simpletons. Just tell them lies, a ton of them. And do with them what you intend. This wonderful and famous kids movie actually was filmed in Crimea, Ukraine. And this post is showing the places where it was filmed. The exact locations. And apparently there is a statue of Pierrot from the movie, with the same boy who played in the movie. And it's in Ukraine. This is very sad. That's what happened. That war between Russia and Ukraine, because we all love that movie. But the point is, this is exact and perfect KGB tactics, which has been used many, many times in the past and today. This is my opinion in the end. You're welcome to write yours in the comments, but even if Trump would have been a Russian spy, I don't think he could have helped Russia more than he already did. And doing right now. Thank you for watching. Learn the truth and stay informed. See you later. Have a great day.